Welcome back, everybody. It is the Working Brother back at you with another talk. Drago Bosnic stuck around. We've got a lot more to cover. Drago Bosnic, welcome back. It's like you never left. You're in the same shirt. I'm in the same shirt. It's the same day for you and me, and it's probably not for everybody who's watching. Welcome back, everybody. This is a comedy show. Drago's a regular here. He knows. You even heard him say fans of nuts in the last episode. You might have noticed I laughed. We don't discuss anything that has to do with reality here. Also, Working Brother on Telegram. Find me on Telegram. We promised you we'd get into more of that Russia stuff. Russian propaganda.
Yeah.
We forgot about Russian propaganda. This is a Russian propaganda comedy show. How can the Kremlin respond to EU-NATO's massive hybrid war against Russia? Hybrid war? What hybrid war? They're not at war with Russia.
Of course. I mean, they are just trying to help Russia to reconstitute itself militarily, I suppose. As the extremely sane U.S. President Biden said recently. Jokes aside, of course, this is essentially like a continuation of the last article we did in the previous episode that we did a few days ago. I suppose that will be for the viewers, even though it's been minutes for us, but it doesn't matter. The point is...
time is relative, man. Time is relative. So is propaganda.
Yeah. That was just my introduction into Einstein's special theory of relativity. So... the whole point about this article, of course, is that the Russians will have to find a way to respond to NATO's encirclement efforts of maintaining this siege of Russia. And a lot of actions that they will be doing are concerned with Scandinavia, which is like one of the most important strategic areas for Russia, especially because the northern area itself is important because of the Arctic and all these other regions that are, for now, frozen, I guess. Russia is trying to find multiple ways, not just military, but also like political and economic, to resist this siege. And I go into greater detail how are they doing it in the article. So I guess if people want to find out more, they can just read the article itself.
As I was scrolling, I noticed here, in fact, Nikolai Patrushev, head of security of the Council of Russia, who is no more the head of security, right? Because it's now, what's his name? Shoigu, right?
Yep.
Warned about NATO's hybrid aggression against Russia earlier, reminding everyone that it is effectively started with a U.S.-EU aggression against Serbia. Do you want to maybe go into a little bit more detail while I find
of course. I can
visual?
Mention, to be honest, I forgot about that quote, but yeah, it is very important, and I'm glad that you pointed it out. As we talked about it, like when we were talking about the 25th anniversary of NATO aggression on Serbia, which was like the final act in its direct aggression on Serbia, we should remember that that was the time when Russia was still very compliant with Western demands, and the government in power, led by late Mr. Yeltsin, essentially did everything the U.S. asked of Russia, except, accepting the bombing of Serbia as one of the final acts of aggression on former Yugoslavia. So the point is, like, this was a turning point for the Russians, and although this event was, let's say, not so long ago, but in terms of like how changed the world is, it may seem so to a lot of people, especially I guess younger ones who weren't even born or were like very small when this was happening. The point is, this was really a turning point in global history because it was like a slap to Russia itself, because Serbia, as its historical ally, was essentially destroyed, and it was like a sort of like a message to the Russians what awaits them if they keep being compliant to the political West. And that was the year when Putin came to power in Russia. Like on the 31st December 1999, he became president. And he has remained in power in Russia to this very day. And we can see how different Russia is to that time, and how much more powerful it is and able to push back against a vastly bigger and more powerful NATO than it was the case in 1999.
We're going to be jumping around in the time-space continuum because it is relative. This is a much newer article, but it is kind of tied to the last one. So
Yep.
it ties into also to my comment about Shoigu. Shoigu got promoted into like a higher position that's more kind of responsible. You want to tell us about this reshuffling and what's going on with this new spending?
Yep. First of all, like Mr. Belousov was, as they would say, demoted to the Minister of Defense. However, this is just a formality because the Ministry of Defense is increasingly important in Russia. It was always important, just to be clear, but it has never been as important as today. And Putin clearly told this man that Russia will be raising its GDP spending for on defense to 8.7% of its GDP. So that's a huge chunk of Russia's increased GDP because right now some economists are projecting that the Russian GDP PPP or purchasing power parity is 5.8 trillion, which makes it the fifth largest economy in the world. So what this means, if you really calculate the percentage, that means that the actual Russian military budget is close to $500 billion in terms of real spending, not the nominal GDP that the U.S. likes to use as an excuse to say that they live like I don't know in the 23rd century while all of us live in the Middle Ages, I suppose. So the point is, why is this important? Because Belousov is an expert in dealing with resources in the best and most efficient way possible. And he was one of the architects of Russia's resurgence as an economic superpower as well, or just, let's say, global power if it's not a superpower. And like he's been the architect of Russia's survival of the sanctions and also the economic growth. So he's an expert in essentially reshuffling the resources that Russia needs to defend itself against this NATO crawling siege, if you want to call it that way, or aggression or whatever. And his promotion is extremely important in this regard. On the other hand, Shoigu will be dealing with the matters of security because he's the head of the Security Council of Russia now. So this reshuffling means that Russia wants to make sure that its economy stays afloat while being able to push back against NATO aggression in Ukraine and I guess elsewhere in Europe where NATO is trying to conduct this sort of like crawling aggression. So this is why Belarus is important. I mean, not a lot of people even knew, who the guy was before he was promoted, or as they say,
I
demoted.
definitely didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard about the guy before. I knew that he was, as they call him, the technocrat. He was the Western media like to call him a technocrat. Essentially, the guy is just very good at his job.
Hmm.
And the fact that he was promoted to this position because in effect it's a promotion, not really like nominally it's a demotion, but not really. In effect, it's a promotion because he will be dealing with the most important ministry in the Russian government, and the one that's going to get the most in terms of budget.
Yeah. All right. I want to take a little break from the news because one of the news that we didn't, bits of news, I should say, that we didn't cover in the last episode that has transpired during my absence is the fact that Texas Russell Bentley has passed away, or better to say, he was killed. So, in his honor, I want to have a minute of silence here. And I'm going to put a little video of Texas and me at the airport. All right. Yeah, we're gonna do a whole episode on Texas one day. But yeah, man, that was some really serious and heavy news.
Yeah, I mean, at first, to be honest, I refused to believe it. I thought it was some
Hmm.
sort of fake news or something. Um, I mean, it's just it's a shame the way he like his life was ended. It's a shame not just like for those who knew him, and many of us did, of course. It's a shame because he gave his life for Russia and he gave his life for the people of Donbass, and he was fighting for them to the very end. And whoever did, what they did to him, deserves the most severe punishment I can imagine. So.
Yeah, like I said, we'll do a whole episode, or maybe even more than that, at some later date. But in the meantime, let's get back to these news. NATO armor finally reaches Moscow once again. More burns across the battlefield. Yeah, not the way they planned to reach Moscow.
Yeah, pretty much. Just like all those German POWs, 60,000 of them, if I'm not mistaken, didn't, think that they would reach the Moscow the way they did in 1944, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, and there's a list of all the things that they've shown, the list of all the Wunderwaffen, as you say, Wunderwaffen. Is that? I guess that would be the right pronunciation. And people can see what all sorts of highly advanced NATO armor fell victim to these very, very backwards Russian Lancet drones, which nobody knows how they function because the Russians simply shouldn't have such a technology.
Putiger's cat translated a meme I sent. I found it in Russian. But yeah, Mom, I want to see a leopard at the zoo. We have a leopard next to our apartment building. The leopard next to our apartment building. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Oh, wait, there's another perfect one. Wait, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I have to find it. No, there it is. I came across this on Instagram. I couldn't believe it. It's the best meme that I've seen in like forever. POV, you're the meme. It's perfect. All right. Now that that's done, let's get back to some news. NATO armor is complete as the front line losses pile up. Neo-Nazi junta escalates propaganda about shootdowns.
Yeah. This one was specifically about the so-called shoot-down of a Tu-22M3 Russian strategic bomber thing. I mean, it's a long-range aircraft, but bomber essentially. It's not really like a strategic one because it lacks the range. But anyway, like they like to call it the strategic bomber. It could be used as one, but anyway, I digress. The point is like there was an engine failure of one of the bombers when it went on a mission and it went down. The problem is it went down like way too far from the front lines to be shot down by anything the Ukrainians have at the moment. However, because they shoot down 6 out of 2 Russian hypersonic missiles, I mean, why wouldn't they claim, that they've shot down a Russian bomber, which is like 500 kilometers from the front line? So unless the Ukrainians somehow got their hands on an S-500, they couldn't have, down this aircraft. So the point is, like, as they're losing on the battlefield, they have to find something to say that they are, winning. But they're not, obviously. And also the analysis of the wreckage showed that it wasn't hit by any sort of shrapnel, which means that if it was shot down, it should have been like a kinetic kill vehicle that you can only find in Ukraine on Patriot systems. But the point is, like, the Patriot system cannot reach that range. Even the best Patriot systems that the U.S. has don't have the range to shoot down a Tu-22M at that range. So
Russian propaganda, man. I've seen it with my eyes. The Patriot system shoots down like hypersonic missiles from Mars, man. I've seen it with my eyes, like just like I've seen satellites with my eyes. There's no fans of nuts in Ukraine. In case everybody forgot, there's absolutely none. Where is my no Nazis in Ukraine? There we go. This is just a normal person's car in Ukraine. It has nothing to do with the no Germans. In any case, U.S. aid.
Yeah.
One
This
big
was about
victory.
Yeah, this was about the $60 billion that they're supposed to get from the United States, or from the divided states, as some of my readers like to say. Very, very, precisely, I would say, in the future, if things, continue going this way. Anyway, the point is, like, I just analyzed how insane this, aid is, and NATO is aid as well, of course, because that put together, that's like $160 billion that they will be giving to very, very non-corrupt individuals who like to share their money with the people of Ukraine, as always, of course. Jokes aside, the point is, like, this will only, prolong the bloodshed and the destruction of the country, while all these extremely honest politicians will be getting more money into their pockets and, using all that money for good cause, as they usually do. So, um, the whole point is, like, where does it stop? How many Ukrainians need to die for the U.S. to stop sending money for more Ukrainians to die? I mean, it's a catch-22 question, I guess.
I don't think you understand the concept of to the last Ukrainian. Um, we already discussed in previous episodes how they've started mobilizing women and so on. So, like, to the last Ukrainian just means to the last Ukrainian, the end, period, full stop.
Like, there's no hyperbole or anything, or any other, like, kind of metaphor. It is the literal meaning of what it is, essentially. So, yeah.
Everybody, thanks for buying me coffees. Fuels the show. Everybody who's not bought a coffee, link in the description if you're interested. Everybody who's new here, hi, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And back to the regular comedy programming. The U.S. wants to militarize space. No. Tell us more.
Yeah. The most ridiculous part is their claim that Russia is now targeting commercial satellites. That's what, the Congress is saying. However, at the same time, they're talking about the usage of commercial satellites for military purposes, specifically Starlink, which is supposed to, like, give you, internet connection so you could watch TikTok, but you're not watching TikTok.
To the free world in Africa. It's supposed to bring internet to Africa. That's why it was originally made. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, they're so, the philanthropy of the West is limitless, I suppose. But of course, jokes aside, the thing is, they're talking about the usage. They're openly talking about the ways to use commercial satellites for military purposes, and then they talk about Russia being aggressive for targeting those commercial satellites that are used for military purposes. So, I mean, if I'm a civilian dressed as a soldier and using a rifle to shoot at you, I'm no longer a civilian, right? I mean, I can call myself a civilian. Maybe I'm not a part of any, military unit, but would I call a civilian?
I think you're an enemy combatant. Technically, I think you're an enemy combatant. Technically,
it's ridiculous.
And that's the thing that I want to draw attention to. In Telegram, often you see, like, the Russian media channels or, like, the auto-translated ones saying, what do they say? They say militant.
Yeah.
But I think, but I think the actual translation should be enemy combatant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what they mean to say is combatant instead of militant.
Yeah. The word militant in Russian and English, they're not exactly the same meaning. So
yeah. Another meme. We invaded Iraq because they had weapons of mass destruction. So then why don't you invade Russia? Are you crazy? They have weapons of mass destruction. For anybody with two brain cells to rub together, that should, like, number one, tell you that, they didn't go into Iraq for WMDs.
Yeah. And they just went there to free all that gold and oil from, the filthy totalitarian hands of Saddam, and give it to all the, freedom and democracy guys at Washington, D.C.
Something to do with that museum from Babylon as well. But let's not get into, like, conspiracy theories. Let's stick to Russian propaganda. Also, like, share, subscribe, everyone. Come on. Like, share, subscribe already. What Russia's deployment of long-range missiles means for Scandinavia. Scandinavia?
Nothing good.
Tell me about Scandinavia.
Yeah, Scandinavia is very lucky to be part of NATO in its entirety now. So now they get to become targets, for Russia's nuclear practice. I guess congratulations if that was your, intention, Scandinavians. Now you should be happy, for having a chunk of Russia's 6,000 nukes pointed at you. And, it's not a faraway country. It's just next door. So they don't have to use strategic missiles to hit anything in Scandinavia. They can use Iskanders and all these other tactical ballistic and hypersonic weapons to, target anything in Scandinavia, essentially. So why is this bad for Scandinavia? Well, I mean, as I said, it wasn't there before. Russia actually dismantled most of its missile brigades and missile divisions in that area after 1991, and now they're coming back online because of NATO's democratic actions in the area, in the region. So good luck with that, I guess.
One of the other bits of news that was news while I was offline is that chemtrails or weather modification, as such, has been accepted as real. So yeah, conspiracy theorists are all yeah, we told you so. The documents were out there for people who actually looked. But yeah, Russian propaganda and conspiracy theories, probably like abiotic oil. What did I say? Let's not get into it. China supposed to fear the feeble threats of top-ranking U.S. officials to Beijing. Oh, damn it. I wish I had the meme. Wait, you talk about this, I'll try and find the meme.
Yeah,
this is hilarious.
Yeah. Well, the guy in the picture, people know him, obviously. That's Mr. Blinken. There was also the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen. Both of them went to China, and instead of talking, about normal stuff like economic cooperation and ways to avoid a world-ending conflict between superpowers, both of them did something that you usually do when you go to anyone's house as a guest. You threaten them, right? They threatened China with sanctions, with economic warfare. They threatened, China not to send any weapons or dual-use goods to Russia. And dual-use goods essentially can be anything, just like a knife is a dual-use thing. Normal person would, slice butter and bread with it, and someone else is going to stab another person with it. So anything can be essentially a dual-use. So what they essentially demanded from China is to, stop its growing trade exchange with Russia, which is almost $250 billion at this point. And of course, the Americans cannot stand the fact that China and Russia are, have such a huge trade exchange without using the dollar, without using, all these other Western currencies. So it's a problem for them because, now they're not getting anything from this, trade exchange. And of course, it's a dangerous precedent, for the world, I guess, as they claim, because more countries will resort to not using the dollar in their international trade. So a lot of problems, and at the same time, they're also encircling China with missiles, but they're also telling China to be not be friends with Russia. It's a really nice strategy. I'm sure it's going to work at some point.
No comment. These are two pop-ups that I saw on YouTube the other day. On the same day, I got both of these suggestions. China's secret navy, as if nobody knew about it, and China's biggest fear, which I didn't even bother to click on to see what the hell it's about. But yeah, there's obviously a new campaign on the YouTubes against China, as opposed to the most recent one against Russia, and the one before that against people who realized that Fauci was an idiot. How China's naval strategy exposes decades of American xenophobic lies. You want to tell us what xenophobic means before you get into it?
Yeah,
it's always good to define. It's good to define terms before you get into them. Right?
Yeah, the fear or hatred, whatever you want to call it, of China So the whole point about the article itself is that, for decades, and I remember this as a kid also, for decades, you could see propaganda being disseminated in all of China's neighbors that China is going to get them all, and take their lunch or whatever. This also includes Russia, where they were, trying to convince the mainstream propaganda machine was trying to convince the Russians that the Chinese will come in and take Siberia from them and, take Vostok and stuff like that.
Even at the beginning of the SMO on like Telegram, there would be like bots who were trying to like convince you that like China is bad, Russia okay,
Yeah.
but like Russia and China should be careful. China is bad. They're gonna take Siberia. I was like, what are you talking about, man? You don't know. It's the secret
Yeah.
plan of the Chinese to take Siberia. I was like, okay, man.
Sure. I mean, like they're just preparing 5 million soldiers to take it, right? But in reality, what's really going on is they're downsizing their land forces severely, and they're investing loads and loads of cash into what? Well, it's the Navy, right? And you don't need to be a geography expert to know that you don't need a fucking Navy to take Siberia, right? From China, of all places. So, uh, like what does China need a navy for? Well, it might be the crazy country from on the other side of the damn ocean, that is trying to get China. So, that's
The
surrounding
one
China
with
with
the
all,
biggest navy, the one with the biggest navy.
yeah, yeah, the one with the largest and most powerful navy, as they say, that is the actual problem for China. I mean, if you want to take Siberia from someone, or if you want to take any sort of land, you don't downsize your land force. You actually increase it, and you don't invest, all that money into the navy, because you don't need the navy to take any land. So the point is, like, China is not going to take Siberia. China is not going to take a single, city or a village in Siberia. China is refocusing on something completely different, on the completely different side of the world, which is the true threat for China. Like the real threat for China is coming from that area. So they're building a navy because, most of the fighting in the future in that area is going to be done on water. So that's why they need the navy. That's the whole point of the
regarding
article.
regarding the China and Russia land thing, I can't remember if it was Putin or Lavrov or both of them. Like I think Putin said it and then Lavrov had to say it just so like people would hear. Because like Putin said it in the middle of like a 3-hour speech and nobody heard him. But the point is that both of them were like, "Hello, we've been neighbors with the Chinese for like thousands of years. We're like we have a border. We're cool. There's not going to be any problems." Like it's funny how the West is trying to sow. I
That
don't know.
border has been virtually unchanged for almost 2 centuries, a century and a half, something like that. Like they haven't touched it. There were some maybe like changes in 1991 with those river islands on, because they have like the Amur River on their border. Most of the border is that river. So they had like small changes where, like they were giving each other, or like, let's say, exchanging some river islands which are completely like the size of a couple of, square kilometers or something like that. So it's nothing, So like the point is, like, the border has been stable for centuries, and they have no plans to change that. So anytime soon, and I'm pretty sure they would not go against each other, considering all the mutual interest they have on a global level. So it's idiotic talk essentially.
Um, Soviet Russian Bear, who we both know, um, put this out as soon as talk of Taiwan with that exercise came out. This is Taiwanese Arestovich saying that they have 2-3 more days of missiles left. Basically, the Chinese have 2-3 more days of missiles left. Just in case anybody needs that template for later when World War III breaks out. Let's do another little Chinese article. Serbia's close ties with China show its future lies in BRICS Plus.
Yep.
Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Xi Jinping, the president of China, he went to Europe to visit Mr. Macron, where he stayed there for a couple of hours, And it
I
wasn't.
don't think he went to Europe to visit Mr. Macron. I think he went to Europe to visit Vucic and Orban, probably in that order.
Yeah, of
And
course,
and
of
then
course.
he saw Macron just to like be like, yeah, we have like 500 years of we know the French. Let's just is it 500 years? I think it was 500 years of Russian Sino-French relations. That's the real reason that he went, I think.
Yeah, something along those lines. But in any case, the point is like they talked about things. Macron told Xi Jinping, "Oh, don't be friends with Russia." Mr. Xi Jinping said, "Sure, bro, no problem." And then he went to Mr. Orban, of course, and he talked to him, and then he came to Serbia. And of course, in both cases, he was welcomed with open
Hmm.
arms because both countries simply need to cooperate with the world's premier economic power, superpower actually, and the real like factory of the world. Because obviously, if you want to make sure that your people, have a bit of a better life because of the growing prices of everything and the inflation, you would want to, be friends with the country that produces essentially everything that you buy in terms of like manufactured goods. And of course, like I think for Serbia, it's important that Mr. Xi Jinping showed not just respect towards our country, unlike the Western leaders who just come here, usually not even leaders, but like they send some lower ranking official to come and threaten us, with all sorts of things if we don't do something that's obviously against our interests. So essentially blackmail and arm twisting. We had a leader, global leader, come and respectfully talk to us. So that's a refreshment, I would say, for us. And obviously, because of all the deals that we signed with the Chinese, it's obvious that for us, being part of the EU and the political West is suicidal. On the other hand, being part of the BRICS is the only like normal solution for us in any like sustainable future, I would say.
Um, I want to take a little break from your articles, and I want to discuss something that also happened while I was offline, which I think is worth mentioning. Boeing. Boeing faces 10 more whistleblowers after 2 die. People's lives are at stake. And the memes keep coming. The Boeing hitman memes. What do you have to say about Boeing's quote, snitches get stitches? William E. Boeing. You know it's true because it's on the internet.
Yeah.
No, seriously speaking though, would you want to fly in a Boeing plane?
Well, I mean, I really don't get it. Like, what's the point of not taking care of your jets, which are then going down or having all these like sort of insane malfunctions, and then instead of like dealing with that, you go and kill people who talk about it. Like, can you kill 1,000 people or tens of thousands of people who are working for Boeing, who are obviously seeing, the demise of this company? I mean, it's insane. And the point is like they have a huge responsibility because most of the world actually uses Boeing passenger jets for their airplane companies. So like airline companies. So why are you not like tapping into that massive market that you own and making sure that your reputation doesn't go down any further? But what they're actually doing is they're accelerating the demise of their market share. So I really don't get it. I mean, I'm at a loss, to be honest.
Um, yeah, Boeing, what can I say? Let's not forget what's going on in Gaza and Palestine in general, occupied Palestine, occupied by the Israelis. I saw this on my personal Facebook. I don't use Facebook that much, but I saw this, a friend of mine shared it. It's pretty apropos, I think they would say. Let's just move on from that and leave that as like the dry joke of the show. We've got another article here by Drago. Google's secret project Maven. U.S. trying to kill Russian troops with AI, but Moscow's electronic warfare is in the way. What are you talking about here? Like
Yeah,
literally, what
I
are you talking about?
I think people should read the article if they want to get all the details, but I will try to be brief. There was this project Maven that was supposed to integrate all sources of information that the AI has access to, that this like AI program has access to, mostly internet and surveillance data, ISR systems, and so on. The point was to make sure that you can triangulate the enemy's position in the most precise way, and then you can use that to target the enemy in the most precise way. So the point is, they tried this. This project has been ongoing for several, well, let's say decades at this point. I think it was like 10 years at least. And they tested it. The Pentagon tested it in Ukraine. They were happy with it in the beginning, but as the Russian electronic warfare became more prominent, they realized that the Russians can completely jam the system and make it obsolete, essentially, because of all their electronic warfare systems, disrupting the functioning of the system itself. So that's the whole point of it. And essentially, it's also an admission that they are using advanced technologies to target Russian troops, and then the Ukrainians can just pull the trigger. But it's NATO. NATO is the one that's doing that. It's relaying the position, and all you have to do is shoot, and it's as easy as that, essentially.
It's like the attack military summary on YouTube. He was saying that the attack on that over the horizon, so-called long-distance early warning anti-ballistic missile shield radar. Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yep.
But I got it right. Yeah, that is what it is. Got attacked by Ukrainian drones. But it wasn't like this. It's not being used in this conflict. Like, it makes no difference to this conflict. It's only something that can protect Russia from nuclear ballistic missiles from the U.S. and Europe, basically. And like, it's obvious that it's not Ukrainians who are deciding these targets anymore.
Absolutely. It makes no sense for the Ukrainians to waste their resources on strategic assets in Russia while they're getting their asses kicked on the front line, right? Especially now when they're losing land, when you're losing areas in Kharkov and these other, like in Donbass and so on. Like, they should be focusing on the tactical parts of the operation, of the SMO. But what they're doing, they're expanding the scope of the SMO to strategic targets. Again, this is not in the interest of the Ukrainians themselves. This is in the interest of their supporters from NATO. And as you said, they're the ones making the decisions. I mean, the attacks on those
supporters. Supporters. I would say puppet masters, and not supporters.
Yeah, I mean,
so supporters are people who buy me coffee. Everybody who's not bought me a coffee, you can buy me a coffee. Those are supporters. Thank you to all my supporters.
Is a far more fitting term. You're right. You're right. I mean, it's also, if you really think about it, like, why would the Ukrainians target that? They don't have ICBMs. Like, it's not like the Russians are going to use those radars against them, because I mean, why would they? It doesn't make any sense. But they're targeting them, right? So it pretty much tells you, as you said, who the puppet masters are. So,
speaking of puppet masters, those puppet masters want to get rid of those old stocks of F-16s, and they found willing test dummies.
Yeah.
Another U.S. pilot confirms F-16s in Ukraine are toast. This is like the 17th episode with Drago that we've talked about F-16s being nothing special, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, just like, even if you don't know anything about jets, even if you just go in Wikipedia, read Wikipedia about this, you'll realize that the F-16 is not like a groundbreaking Wunderwaffe that the Russians should be, frightened of. The point is, it's just another jet, and the ones that the Ukrainians will be getting are in no way better than the MiG-29s that they have already, and those haven't been very, very successful against the Russians. So, and what, obviously anyone can say that, right? But when you have pilots of those same F-16s from saying that, I just want to, point out that this is not some BS talk from me, who obviously I'm not a pilot. I just want to point out that actual professionals who use those jets, are saying that. So just to confirm my thesis about it.
I got a question. Would the Tomcat be any more useful?
Well, modernized, yes. However, like if you take a 1979 Tomcat or even 1985 Tomcat against modern Russian jets, it's not going to be very useful. I mean, it does have those Phoenix missiles, which are very long range, and essentially the U.S. has never had any such long range missiles as the Phoenix. I think the Iranians are producing their domestic variant. I think it's called Fakur or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. But if you I presume if you had like some sort of like a 21st century Tomcat, it would certainly be a far bigger threat to the Russians than any F-16. I mean, F-15s would also be a threat to the Russians, especially like a newer versions of it. But the point is, like, even if Ukraine gets like 10 F-15s, for example, it's not going to be enough to make a difference unless it's like 50 or 60 or 100 F-15s. And considering that the performance of F-15 and F-14 was similar, in its heyday, I suppose any sort of like a modernized F-14 would be similar to an F-15 today. So yeah, it would be a potent jet. I mean, it would be self-defeating to simply not acknowledge the fact that it would be a deadly jet and just underestimate it. So I think it would make a difference if provided that there's enough of them, for the Ukrainians.
Yeah, that was a little sidebar. I'm not sure if the audience can also hear the crackling. I'm not sure also if that's on my end or if it's on this audio processing end, and if my voice is also going to be crackling, but your voice is coming through crackling. It could be my headphones. It could be anything. So everybody who's been sticking through all the technical difficulties, if there have been any on your side, thank you. And if not, thank you for sticking around anyway. Who will deliver additional Patriot SAM systems to replace Kiev's regime's losses? Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, this one plays into one of the articles we talked about already with Zelensky's Patriot games. As far as I know, in the meantime, Spain confirmed that they will be sending some of their own, but Poland and Germany said they don't have it anymore. Japan might send some of their own. However, it's not nearly enough. The demands, or begmanding, as Mr. XF says it. Essentially, there's no way for them to get enough, to jeopardize the Russian Air Force and their operations on the front lines.
What do you have to say about pictures that have surfaced of Abrams with cope cages?
Yeah, I guess it's Russian propaganda because they said those cope cages work.
Yeah, it's Russian.
I mean, we've seen Israeli Merkava tanks with cope cages. We've seen, if I'm not mistaken, I think I've seen some Chinese tanks during exercises with cope cages, which means everyone realizes, because if countries in a war zone are using them, that means that they work, at least to a certain degree. Because it's not just about drones, it's also about those ATGMs and these other
tandem warheads,
that tandem warheads with cumulative effects, which because those cages essentially disrupt those tandem warheads, and then you survive. The tank survives, or at least the crew survives, which is kind of the point. So why wouldn't you use it? If it makes sense, if it works, it doesn't matter if it's pretty or not, because it's war. It's not like a fashion week or whatever.
Yeah. We should do an episode 2 and to discuss those turtle tanks. Like you and I could do like a whole 20-minute special about turtle tanks. Leave a comment. Do you want me to do... Wait, let me do this to the audience. Where's me? You guys, let me know in the comments. Do you want me to do another series that's just me talking to camera, discussing things, and maybe have people and discuss little topics and have little short videos? If you want some of that, leave a comment below. All right. Now back here, and then we go back to this. Huh?
Make a poll also. I'm pretty sure people would support it.
I made a couple of polls. People are scared of my polls on Telegram. Whenever I put a poll, they're like people are reluctant to answer. Because the options are like wacko. That's why. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's a comedy show. Political West appears to be backing off after Russia's nuclear warning. Nuclear warning? You mean those strategic missile tests that they did like a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, yeah, that was the article. The article was about that and about the sudden, revelation of the Europeans that they're trying to toss the hot potato to the other guy. French to the Germans and Germans to the Poles and Poles to the Finns and so on. Whenever they see Russia doing something that they don't like, but they can't do anything about, then they want to, make sure that they're not the ones who are going to get the nuclear mace straight to the face if push comes to shove. So
Nuclear mace straight to the face. Wow, man. Did you get that somewhere, or did you just like make that up right
that was
now?
just
Like
me talking now.
that's
I didn't even
awesome.
realize
That's
it actually
awesome. That should be a T-shirt. Nuclear mace to the face. Watch it.
I didn't even mean to rhyme. You just pointed out that I didn't even realize it was a rhyme. So
Brilliant. It's brilliant.
so the point is actually I use that because one of the nuclear some of the nuclear submarines that the Russians are using, they have missiles that are called bulava, which means mace in Russian. So I think that's the reason why I used it. I didn't even realize it's gonna be a rhyme. Anyway, the point is, like, whenever the Russians are doing this so-called nuclear saber rattling, because the West does nuclear stabilization, Russia does nuclear saber rattling, obviously.
Of course.
Whenever they do this, the West realizes, oh man, maybe it's not such a smart idea to poke the bear, because the bear can, send all these missiles flying to us and ensure that we're turning into a glass desert for several eons. The point is, like, but then even when they acknowledge the danger of nuclear war, then they just revert back to this suicidal behavior of poking the bear again. I'm at a loss, to be honest.
This was sent in by a friend quite a long time ago from Germany. This is a German meme. You can understand why this would be a German meme. All of the Germans have gone like totally berserk, man. Was it child pornography that was recently like legalized in Germany? I don't know if I can even say that. Can I say that on YouTube? Like, but
they essentially, I mean, it would be legal in Germany now because you can talk about it.
right?
Sure,
What the f actually? What the actual f? Like no
I
comment.
I wrote about it, and I think one of the articles that I sent is about that, and also about the reduction of prison sentences for the MAPs, so-called MAPs, minor attracted people.
No, it's okay. We'll talk about it when we get to the article. Let's do this one because of that audio issue. I'm still hearing crackling. I don't know if it's just me or if it's just you or if it's everybody. So let's wind this down with this last article that we've got, and maybe I'll put up another meme. And then we'll check our audio, and then we'll do the third episode. So Indonesia denies giving up on Su-35. Indonesia says Su-35. Tell us more.
Indonesia actually signed a deal with Russia to get the Su-35 jets, and then sometime I think in 2020, late 2021, if I'm not mistaken, I think in November, something like that. The mainstream propaganda machine was flooding us with all these reports that Indonesia, gave up on the deal, and that they will be buying the F-15s from the U.S. and Rafales from France. And for the last 2 years, they've been talking about it so much, and I didn't see any reactions from the Russians that I thought it was true, And it turned out Indonesia's ambassador to Russia confirmed that the deal is still ongoing, but because of the SMO and everything else that's going on in Ukraine, they've put it on hold because Russia itself is focused on this because it takes priority, obviously, and that they will deliver the jets at some point in the future, maybe in the next few years. But the point is, the deal is not dead; it's still on.
All right, excellent. As you started talking about that, your internet started acting up, and you lost a bunch of resolution, gained a lot of pixels. But you know, you gain some things, you lose some other ones. In any case, Drago, thank you again for stopping by or for continuing to chill and record. Everybody who stuck around and listened to this through the technical difficulties, the bad internet connection, and my glitchy camera, thank you. Everybody who liked, shared, subscribed, thank you too. Let's play some music. There we go. Drago, anything you want to say before we sign off? I forgot to ask you last time.
Yep. I mean, I guess see you soon.
All right, excellent. See you soon, everyone.